Saddle up your horses.
What's going on, everybody? It is a cover 4 version, and it's not an Engage 8 or anything like that. It's a cover 4 version of the Manly Broncos. And why do we say that? Because the altitude adjustment has invaded the Manly Broncos podcast with none other than my good friend Mario Vitanzi over there at Let's Talk Broncos. For I guess Mario, to hit things off, like, you doing well? Yeah, I mean, fresh off the combine, you doing well?
I'm doing great. I'm doing much better than people that think the combine means anything. I mean, it's pure entertainment value, and there's so many people that are like, this guy's draft stock is plummeting. This guy's draft stock is rising. And I'm just living here, I'm over here living my best life in reality where, I'm doing great because I don't believe those things. It's the underwear Olympics, and it's weird that a bunch of grown men go watch a bunch of younger grown men run around and work out in their underwear. But you know what? No judgment, to each their own. We all derive pleasure from different things. For example, I derive pleasure from doing podcasts and talking about how stupid it is to watch college kids run around in their underwear. But that's just me.
Sounded like a little bit of judgment there.
Okay, there's a little bit. A little bit.
Well, I was gonna say, and given the fact that you are so athletically gifted, you yourself probably wouldn't have no business, running the 40 or the shuttle or anything like that, because you would pride yourself on the interview process, more important.
Of course. Well, and here's the funniest thing about the combine that people don't realize. It's like, I can throw a football pretty well. If you put me out there, it's like, will you notice a difference? Of course. I'm not stupid to think that I could hang with those guys, but I could make pretty much every throw that those guys make. And that's not like me saying, oh, look at me, I'm such a good quarterback. This is stupid. And most anybody who can throw a football can do these things. It's not a great way to measure a quarterback skill set. Like you said, Cam, it's interviews, it's the whiteboard talk, it's stuff like that. And I figured I would just segue right into the combine talk, since I know that you wanted to discuss it, and probably wanted to discuss how terrible Emmett Johnson looked. Like, shocker, a guy from Nebraska, underwhelmed. I can't believe it.
First things first, of course, hit the subscribe button for the MHRT Network page. We also do a YouTube channel for Manly Broncos, so hit the subscribe button for Manly Broncos. And of course, follow the boys. I would say at Mile High Mario, but unfortunately, that account is no more.
You know what? I'm still that's not okay, Cam. Okay, it's too soon. That account was ripped away from me 5 years ago. That's still too soon.
But follow at Vitanzi Therapy, and obviously Jordan T. Lopez, and at Brandon Miller PO. Jordan, Brandon, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing well over here. Just want to get these mock drafts out of the way. I just want the NFL draft to happen already. I kind of feel like, but I think we all know what the Broncos need and want. But man, it's
quarterback.
It's just gonna be weeks and weeks of just BS and us hearing smoke screens and all this, and us having to bite on certain things. So we just have to beware of what we read and stuff.
The mocks that you guys read for the last month, what do you want me to say? It's embarrassing sometimes.
Exactly.
Wasn't there an executive that came out like recently and said something like their draft strategy was like actually influenced by the mock drafts they were seeing people were doing?
That's crazy.
Am I going crazy? I feel like I saw someone say that.
If anyone, it was probably someone in the Jets organization.
It was probably Aaron Glenn. I agree with Sean Payton's analysis of how important these mock drafts are, but they're still fun to do. I mean, we got to do something. We got to have some kind of fun between now and April, right? Because it's just like, other than that, it's either play around with some mock drafts or see the word Joker used 14,000 more times that I've already muted.
God.
I
Can we kill that term,
I'm so over
Brandon?
it.
I'm so glad you brought it up. Can we burn it with fire and shoot it into the effing moon? I'm so sick of hearing this term. And here's the thing, like, it would not surprise me if Sean Payton was just trolling us. Like, he doesn't. It's like, whose line is it anyway? Everything's made up, and the score doesn't matter. That's exactly what the Joker is. It's like it's all made up. It's an arbitrary term that doesn't actually have a definition. It's just like, pornography on TV in the 80s. It's like you can't define it, but people said, "I know it when I see it."
When you see it.
That's Sean Payton's approach to the Joker. So, like, can we stop? It's not Evan Ingram. It's not RJ Harvey. It's not anyone ever. Okay? Jimmy Graham was a tight end. Darren Sproles was a running back. What other examples he wants to use, they played their own positions. Like, everybody shut up about the Joker.
Yeah, they don't actually have a position defined that says Joker.
We already have
unless they have that, then I want to stop hearing about it.
Right.
Yeah. But no, the one thing I would say about like just with the combine, what are they feeding these kids now, man? I feel like maybe it was just this year, but there's been some freakish people at this combine. Like, what's going on? Eli Stowers, man, take a bow.
Well, but even then, like, you see some of these people that are like 320 pounds, 30 pounds that are running like five flat 40s. And it's still relative, but like that's like mammoth fast, like for someone that size. So
I want to tell people real quick, Cam. It's like one of the funniest things, and one of the reasons that I think the combine is so stupid. Malachi Fields runs what was it, 4.63, something like that, and everybody is so disappointed, and they're not even disappointed; they're disgusted. He's disgusting. How could you run above 4.6 40? And the people that talk like that, and the people that make a big deal about it, would run a 7-second 40 on their best day. So I just want to say, like, as a body expert, the difference between 4.4 and 4.65 is like that. Okay, so you're literally splitting hairs. And so when they do when they're showing the 40 times and they're showing like, oh, here's how this guy ran compared to this guy, and then Saquon Barkley, and there's him running it, and Christian McCaffrey, and it's like they're literally separated by this much, and they're like, well, that's a massive difference. That's 0.7 seconds worth of difference. It's like, it's not. And at the end of the day, you're either football fast or you're not. And again, like, I don't give a shit how fast someone runs in their whitey tighties. I want to see them with full pads on. This is what they should do to the combine. If you're going to make them run a 40, then put pads on them, put helmets on them, then time them and see how fast they are.
But that's not entertaining. Where's the entertainment and the drama in that?
That would be more entertaining to me if they actually wore pads. I'm not trying to see dude bulge on my TV.
Well, I wonder if
I agree with you. I'm more saying like the NFL's never going to do that because that flies.
You're right.
Right,
because they like seeing dude bulge on their TV.
It's a circus, yeah. I mean, in the case of Chris Jones, literally.
Well, I wonder how much, like, because everybody gravitates to the 40. Like, everybody gravitates to the 40. And I wonder how much of it is just Olympics driven to a degree of, like, the track and field. Because everybody loves, like, track and field, right? Like,
the Olympics are way more entertaining.
Yeah, like all the running and everything. And everybody's so attracted to that, like, And so I think because of that, there's so much popularity with, like, the speed skating, the 40, anything that involves something like that, because we wish we could run that fast and we don't, and so that's the only thing I can think of. But Jordan?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, the only good thing about the combine, I guess, is the 40, but even besides that, like, no one else is watching any other drill. Like, I don't even think they air the bench press no more. Like, I only just see 40 clips.
Maybe just highlights. I don't think I ever saw any bench press stuff like that.
Yeah, like, I haven't seen any other drill but the 40, like, on my timeline. So it is what it is, but hopefully.
I saw Jordan Tyson putting up some pathetic bench press reps.
That shouldn't have
I
counted.
think-
And
Like
it
he
was
ran
supposed to be
22
more
times. I'm like, he
NFL's
used his whole body.
Yeah,
He's not even doing
his
it
butt
right.
was not on the bench. That doesn't even count.
No.
And the NFL's
And he's bringing it
official
down, and
posted
he's using his momentum, and he's pushing it up. I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
It's the CrossFit bench press, dude. It's the kipping.
Exactly. It's a CrossFit bench press.
Yeah, I think we get more out of the pro days than we do the combine, if I'm being honest.
Well, I think for one too, like those players are in their most comfortable setting, which is their university, and and it's the adrenaline of where they are too. So
It's a crapshoot. I mean, Paxton Lynch looked elite at his pro day, so
Well,
Right.
that's also true. And Zach Wilson
Cameron
and-
Parker is famously a really big Paxton Lynch supporter.
allegedly, yes. So
where's this Brian?
So going into this combine stuff and getting a little bit more in depth, we'll start with you, Mario. Aside from the obvious of the stuff of like a Taylon Green, obliterating the combine with his workout. Who are some of your like big victors, if you will, for some of this combine from a Broncos side of things?
I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Mike Washington Jr. I've been pounding the table for him for probably a solid 2 months now. And honestly, the combine is just one of those things where it's like, it's validation to me. Like, I knew he was big and strong and powerful and fast. And it's like, to me, it's nice that everybody else that like wasn't already aboard the Mike Washington Jr. hype train, like saw the 40 and they saw the drills and everything. It's like, oh, he had a great combine and he helped his draft stock. It's like, no, what helped his draft stock is his film. Like the fact that he rushed for over 1,000 yards, I think it was 6 or 8 touchdowns, over 6 yards per carry on a bad Arkansas team in the SEC. It's like the combine is what it is. So it's like if I had to say someone, it's like, yeah, he had a really impressive combine. He's a freak athlete. Now I'm not going to be one of these people that's like, oh, their RAS score is 9.5 or higher. We need to draft him. Because I thought, like, there's a lot of guys that you haven't heard it all about during the draft cycle. Like Jeff Caldwell comes to mind. I think the receiver out of Cincinnati, I believe it is. And everyone's like, oh, my God, he's a freak athlete. He's 6'5" and 215. And, he ran a 4.3 40. And I talked to Andy about him, who's in the chat right now. And I was like, why do I not know who this guy is? Like, I'm pretty dialed in. And, I've looked him up and they're like, yeah, he's probably a UDFA. And now you have people pounding the table like, oh, no, there's no way that, with his RAS score that he's going to be a UDFA. Like, he's going to be a day 3 pick or he could go even higher than that. And so when I asked Andy just straight up said, like, he's bad at football. It's like, he's a great athlete, but he's not a good wide receiver. So I read up on him. It's like, he can't block. He rounds off the top of his routes, doesn't have great hands, doesn't have an extensive route tree. And so it's important to temper all of these expectations, right? It's like you can have a great combine and maybe it helps you out a little bit, but if you didn't put good film out when you were in college, you could run a 4.15 40. You could bench press 50 reps at 225. None of it is going to matter if you're a bad football player.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're drafting football players, not just athletes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And they should be both. Like, and in the chat, Chuck Hartman said, George is really big on RAS score. That's fine. Like, I am too. But the RAS score has to match their production and their college tape. So you get a guy like Mike Washington who pops on tape, and then he has the RAS score. I think it was the highest RAS score ever by a running back. And it's like, okay, well, that syncs up. And so it kind of validates everything that you're thinking about a guy like Mike Washington Jr. And honestly, on the adverse side, like Cam, I knew I'd give you crap about Emmett Johnson. Yeah. He's obviously a really good running back. I don't care where he went to college. I don't care what his 40 time was, what his measurables were. I know his RAS score was somewhere in the 5s. He's going to be a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and he's going to be a good running back in the NFL. So it goes both ways. So, like, yeah, people might be fans of RAS scores, and I think it's important to find good athletes. But again, that score has to match the film and the production that they put out in college. Bottom line is you can either play football or you can't.
Well, I was going to say, there's a few cases of players who just completely bombed a combine. And all of a sudden you look at their NFL career, like their career, relatively speaking, and they've had solid careers. And I think the one positively from a running back side of things that comes to mind is obviously, your co-host and partner of crime, favorite, or one of his all-time favorites, if you will, and that'd be Kyron Williams. Like, Kyron Williams was one who notoriously bombed the combine. Like, he failed nearly almost every test, and all of a sudden in the NFL, what happens? He becomes one of the better running backs in the National Football League. So it's just one of those things, like, you have to, probably more often than not, trust the film above all else.
Always.
What about you, Jordan? Okay, we should probably preface this because he's probably going to go to a certain position group. What sort of position group surprised you, or player that surprised you that's not a wide receiver?
That's not a wide receiver. Well, I think I'll stick with the obvious then. If we're not going to go with a wide receiver, the way Kenyon Sadiq looked at that combine, I didn't know that was humanly possible.
Yeah.
What he was able to do. I thought maybe we had a chance before the combine, but after he ran his 40 and the way he looked, there's just no chance he even sniffs 30. So it was a bummer because now I know that's not going to be a possibility for the Broncos. Another one is the tight end for Vanderbilt that Brandon mentioned earlier. He had a pretty good workout as well, and his tape actually matches as well, at least in my opinion. I thought Stowers looks good on tape, but I mean, if we're not talking about receivers, those two tight ends to me stood out the most.
I mean, from a pure receiving threat and probably athleticism side of things, or a very, like, we're going to draft him higher, Oronde Gadsden type of tight end. Yeah, definitely Eli Stowers, who, by the way, was getting first round buzz according to Pro Football Focus, or drafting him at pick 30 or whatever on their mock draft. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, Eli Stowers was already going to be my guy. That guy is an absolute just freak, which he proved obviously at the combine by, I think he was like, didn't Kenyon Sadiq broke the 40 record for tight end, and then
Vernon Davis
what's that?
He was Vernon Davis, Bronco legend.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that Sadiq went first, and I think he actually broke the vertical jump record, I believe, and then Stowers came and broke his, which is just like actually ridiculous. But you turn on the tape, and like Jordan said, he backed it up. He has some like ridiculously athletic circus catches at Vanderbilt, so he's an interesting one for sure. And then, I mean, he's kind of like already a darling of, I feel like, most of draft Twitter in general. But Jacob Rodriguez, please come to Denver in some way, shape, or form. It's probably going to be like the second round.
Please.
Like, there's no way that he goes anywhere lower than that. But he just is a baller in just every way possible.
Are we believing this first round buzz or whatever that people are self-generating, if it feels like, on Twitter?
The one thing I think I have to continuously remind myself, and hopefully everyone else does this too, around this time in the offseason, there's about 50 first-round picks, allegedly. There's 50 players that are going to go in the first round, which obviously is not possible. So I don't know if I don't think he's going to go that high. I think he's going to go high in the second round, but I don't think he's going day one. I could be wrong. People go and do crazy things all the time and pick players that probably shouldn't be picked in the first round. And I'm not even saying that he shouldn't be picked in the first round, because like he's a stud, but I want him in Denver. So don't take him in the first round.
What about you, Mario? Obviously you and I have been pretty team J-Rod for a while, but like, would you be one of those people that is taking him at 30, much like what we're seeing there on the timeline?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Here's what I'll say about it. And I go back and forth about whether I want the draft to come before free agency or vice versa. So in this particular instance, because free agency comes first, we assume that they're going to address it. It remains to be seen what they're going to do with Alex Singleton. I have very strong opinions about that, but that's not the question I was asked, so we're not going to go down that road. But it depends. Like, do they add a Devin Lloyd? Do they add someone else at inside linebacker? What do they do with Dre Greenlaw? Do they restructure him? Do they release him post June 1st? We don't know. So it all depends on like what that linebacker room is looking like. And at the end of the day, it depends on where George Payton and Sean Payton have guys on their board. You know, they famously took Jahdae Barron at 20, even though they had a trade in place to go back with the Giants, who wanted to come up and get Jackson Dart. But because Jahdae Barron was one of the few blue chip prospects they had, they went ahead and took him. So do they feel that same way about Rodriguez, where maybe they have him as BPA and it's also a need? So basically, to answer your question, if they don't do enough to address the inside linebacker position in free agency, and a guy like CJ Allen is gone, and maybe they like Rodriguez more than Anthony Hill, which I do myself, then I'd be fine with Jacob Rodriguez going at 30. And I will say this, like when I first like was familiarizing myself with Jacob Rodriguez, like First of all, his ball production is insane. Like the forced fumbles, the interceptions, the tackles, he is always around the ball and he just makes plays. And it's because he's so damn smart. My knock against him was that he was undersized. But the more I thought about it, like as you look around the NFL has changed compared to how it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. You're not seeing the Cam Chancellors really anymore at safety. You're not seeing, the Al Wilsons, at the inside linebacker position. It's like defenses are getting smaller and faster in order to keep up with, today's offenses that are throwing the ball 65-70% of the time. So the size no longer bothers me with Jacob Rodriguez because it harkens back to what I was saying earlier. Does he put enough out on film? He plays a really difficult position where you have to know where you're at all times. In fact, it's seemingly the only reason that people can justify Alex Singleton getting a pay raise when he's going to be maybe 33 years old going into the next season because he's the green dot. He's so smart. And it's like, Jacob Rodriguez is really smart too. CJ Allen basically wore the green dot for a Georgia defense that was incredibly complicated and convoluted and did a fantastic job. So if that's what you're looking for, like, to me, Jacob Rodriguez next season would be an improvement over current Alex Singleton.
Right.
Would it be worth it to take him at 30 if that's the case? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think
there's – go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and the thing that I think that I also have to, like, remind myself, too, is there's probably there's always, like, the consensus rankings, right? Like the positional rankings that people will, for the most part, rank. But we all know teams have just very different rankings for how they have linebackers. So to the Jacob Rodriguez stuff at 30, there could very well be a team that has J-Rod above him. And I think a lot of that, frankly, does stem from his intellectual, side of things, the smarts that he has. Just because, like, he's a former quarterback, right? And that needs to be talked about more. Like, he's a former quarterback, and I do think his athleticism is quite a bit underrated. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he actually has, some teams, if you will, maybe even in that first round or the back end of that first round that actually have him higher than in Anthony. And I will say, like, when I was at the Senior Bowl, the playmaking was there. Like, he made an interception like at the very last end of a practice that I was just like the best capper you could ask for a day that he actually had based on the fourth fumbles and stuff like that. So it clearly shows up. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised, I guess. I would be somewhat disappointed, but I wouldn't be shocked.
I think there's a lot of opportunities to upgrade the inside linebacker spot this offseason. I think this team would be making a mistake if they don't capitalize on that in at least some way, shape, or form, whether that's Rodriguez at 30. Was Bobby Okereke was just released by the Giants yesterday,
yes.
Who is a solid player. I know he's 29, but he's been good for them and consistent. I think you have to do something. Like, it's just been an issue for so long at this point. Like, even with the moves that they had made going into this year, and like, I don't have anything against Alex Singleton, but just given where he's at right now in his career, I don't know if I want Alex Singleton to be my starting inside linebacker. So I think they have to make some kind of a move there. But I also think that there's enough. This kind of goes back to Mario's point. I think there's enough players available even in free agency that could be filled by the time we're in the draft. And there's even some other draft prospects as well this is like a pretty interesting linebacker draft. But I don't think he's going to go round one, but like that's not me saying I wouldn't be okay with us taking him in round 1.
Yeah. Moving forward.
Well, here's the thing, man. As it pertains to the inside linebacker position, the defense was borderline elite last year, but inside linebacker was the biggest negative. Right? It's like that was by far the biggest negative on the defense. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's like if you're going to extend Alex Singleton, okay, then expect more of the same. And also understand that his best years are probably behind him. So it's like, do you want to be really good and solid, which Alex Singleton is, or do you want to try to improve the biggest weakness on your defense and be taken seriously as a Super Bowl contender?
Yeah.
Yeah, my only thing on the linebacker thing is, like, I agree with Mario. It depends on what we do free agency. I know last episode I said that I truly do believe that the Broncos are going to sign Devin Lloyd. And I mean, I was joking around when I said about DeMario Davis, but you never know. He's a Saints guy. You know how Sean Payne is with the Saints guys. But if they don't address it, which I would highly doubt if they don't in the free agency, Jacob Rodriguez at the 30th overall pick, I wouldn't be mad at. But I am still in the belief of that 30th overall pick will be in Miami, because you know who's coming to town. But I digress.
I'd be all for that.
Might need a little bit more wishful thinking on that part for that to.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say, in looking at some of these other position groups, and everything too, because one of the other ideas and, positions as far as, going forward probably is that wide receiver room, but maybe not so much, trading for a wide receiver, but maybe adding a wide receiver in this draft. And I think that, when you think of the class that was this last year to now, it's a relatively deep class this year. Like, it's a relatively deep wide receiver class. And obviously, there's been a certain wide receiver that is skyrocketed, or what once started out to be Elijah Surratt ended up skyrocketing to end up becoming an Omar Cooper, as far as on that same football team. But I guess we'll probably start with the wide receiver guru, or so he calls himself, wide receiver guru.
I do not call myself that, no. I get people attacking me. No, I just like the position. It's my favorite
He's
position.
actually just a wide receiver addict. Is a difference.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a great title. I would actually take that title.
Unless it is
Jerry Judy doing, Jordan.
Here we go.
What's popped up on your Google alerts recently?
Google search.
But
we should have done this entire show in the mood of Jerry Judy. Fine.
Just completely drop the ball.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah.
Listen, I deserve it.
We're talking football. It's fine.
I deserve
it.
But in terms of the wide receivers, I was always intrigued with Chris Brazo from Tennessee. He's 6'5", and he flies on the field. I know we had mentioned the receiver from Cincinnati, Jeff Caldwell. I mean, I was very surprised with how he looked at the combine. The one that I actually thought did not help his case at the combine was Denzel Boston from Washington. He had a very, very shaky drill session with the quarterbacks, and it even got to the point where Daniel Jeremiah, who he rarely mentions the mistakes at the combines with the drills, he kept on calling out Denzel Boston with his drops and stuff like that. So it was very telling on how poor of a performance he was having. And I know a lot of people love Boston and the way he played at Washington. So it'll be interesting to see how, his trajectory goes as the weeks go on and stuff, because I can see a possibility where he continues to slide and it becomes a talking point for Denver. But that's another conversation for another day. But the wide receiver group for the draft class, like, there's some pretty good ones. And I think later you go on in the draft, like round 3 and 4, like there's some depth guys that can have a pretty good role on some championship teams. So,
Brandon, before you give your take on the wide receiver, please don't try and swoo us with your eyes like Malachi Lemon.
Dude, that was one of the strangest interviews. I guess not an interview. It was like a presser availability. That was just weird.
Yeah, it was.
That was odd. I also heard that he did not do well in his private interviews.
Yeah.
Either.
If he acted that way in his actual interviews, that would be.
I don't think there's no way, right?
I don't know if he did that, but I heard it was not good. So take that as you will. But yeah, I don't think he improved much with his prospects. One of the guys that is interesting to me, obviously Omar Cooper is the obvious name that's just kind of shooting up.
We love Omar.
I love Omar Cooper. I would be okay with Omar Cooper at 30. I think he's an amazing player.
Omar Cooper.
Another guy that had just kind of been I don't know if I would say he's been flying under the radar because he's been getting a decent amount of love, but I think Omar Cooper has kind of supplanted him in just popularity, which fair for a fair reason. Omar Cooper's great. Is Casey Concepcion. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing his name perfectly anymore.
I think that's right.
I've heard it 40 ways. I don't know, but he just is so smooth. He's not he's quick. He's not a speed demon, but he has some burst to him, and he's just such a smooth player. He's able to just really get into the position of the field that he needs to be in, and he's a wide receiver that is able to build that trust with the quarterback where he's going to be where he needs to be when you need him to be there, and he's going to make a play for you. I don't know if I would necessarily be looking at him at 30, although I think he could go in round 1. I think he's probably a round 1 player. I think I prefer Omar Cooper personally, but I do think he is someone to look at and at least keep an eye on just to see who kind of goes around that range.
Mario, this is your floor, I guess, to start talking about Omar Cooper at 30, and frankly, anybody else that caught your eye a little bit at wide receiver.
I love Omar Cooper, and honestly, he feels like a guy it's being talked about here. He's not been talked about enough, and I don't know where he's being placed in terms of draft order. It wouldn't surprise me if he went somewhere in the 20s. The film is fantastic. The body control is great. It's the yards after catch. That's what I think. That's the biggest thing that is alluring to me. As a Broncos fan and what the Broncos need. They need just an absolute stud when it comes to yak ability. We saw a little bit of that out of Pat Bryant, and I think as he becomes more comfortable in the offense, maybe he can be a serious yak weapon for this offense. We saw it a little bit with Marvin Mims, but he needs a little bit of space to do so. Cortland Sutton, it's he's down when he catches the ball, and it's fine because the 50-50 balls are closer to 70-30, but it gets frustrating at times that a dude that's bigger than our tight end one, is completely incapable of yards after the catch. Right. But to that end, another name that I want to throw out there that hasn't been discussed is Chris Bell. And I don't know what his draft stock looks like because of the injury. But if the Broncos keep saying we like the room, we like the room, we like the room, then prove it. Take a Chris Bell, who you probably won't have early on in the season,
Mm-hmm.
but midway through the season when guys are starting to get run down, and you can insert Chris Bell in a couple of formations and drop some plays for him. For my money, he was one of the best yak receivers in the entire league, and he's built like a running back. He's like a Jamar Chase, very light. Okay, I'm not comparing him directly to Jamar Chase, but in terms of actual build, where he's a muscular, still tall but stocky build. I love Chris Bell. And I feel like that's the guy that not a lot of people are talking about because of the injury. But again, if you really do like the room, like George Payton has repeatedly said, and maybe it's a misdirect, but if you really do like that room, then it's then you don't care if Chris Bell is not available during training camp or early on in the season, because you know what he can do with the football in his hands. And then two other guys, not necessarily first-round guys, but Ted Hurst, who I had not even heard of, and then I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and I'm like, whoa, this dude is scary good. And I was talking to Andy, my residential draft expert, and he's like, I see a lot of George Pickens in him. And I'm like, if he could beat George Pickens without all the goofy shit between his brains, then sign me all the way up for Ted Hurst. I don't know what round he's projected in. It's really difficult with these small school guys because it's he absolutely dominated on film, but it's he's playing far inferior competition. So that's exactly what you want to see. I will say two other guys. Skylar Bell, I wanted to mention. I don't know if he is necessarily the kind of receiver that like the Broncos need per se, but a really good, solid, like chain moving wide receiver, really good route runner. And then Brendan Thompson, of course, fascinates me. I mean, if they're not going to use Marvin Mims, then maybe Brendan Thompson isn't right for this offense. Like they have a guy that can take the top off of the defense, and anytime they ask him to do it, it seems to work pretty well. But the frequency with which they do it, I know is frustrating to me and the majority of Broncos country. So even though a guy like Brendan Thompson, who maybe is an even more explosive version of Marvin Mims, like would be fascinating maybe on day 2 or early day 3. But then it calls into question, like, would they actually use him the way that they would need to?
Right. And that's kind of the million-dollar question in general when it comes to Marvin Mims. Are they going to be using him? You know, and that's probably what's been feeding the stuff of KC Concepcion, you know, probably a like pick 30 or, you know, and I think that like a couple wide receivers, and I'm glad you mentioned Ted Hurst, so I won't mention him, but like, I think that, you know, there were a couple players that like have kind of been on that, like, are they going to use Marvin Mims type player? But he's such a fascinating player that's hard for me to ignore, like with this offense. And that's, you know, Zachariah Branch, right? Like Zachariah Branch is another one that's like, you know, if you're going to be not using Marvin Mims, Branch is another one where he's actually pretty electric when it comes to after the catch and, you know, smartly, you know, in his yards after catch. And then Kevin Coleman is another one from Missouri. Like Kevin Coleman's another one from Missouri that I like a lot. And then frankly, it was what I believe was Andy who mentioned him, and that would be Malik Benson from Oregon. Malik Benson from Oregon, you know, the speed demon, if you will, from Oregon. I'm be really curious to see, you know, what his stock would be, if you will, when it comes to this draft. But yeah, I'm very curious to see when it comes to this wide receiving core. Because if there's one thing we said, and it was said, they like what they have. They like what they have.
Yeah, that's not going to cut it out. I mean, I need this room to be a lot better. We can't have Bo going into his 3rd year, putting on his Superman cape again and having to carry these guys again. He just surround your guys with help. I mean, it's going to suck even more when that trade notification hits in where the Patriots trade for A.J. Brown, getting Drake May more help. Meanwhile, we're talking about drafting another young guy that may not even play 30% of the snaps. Like, I'm just tired of just go get a guy for Bo, please.
Yeah. And then I guess like to just kind of like wrap up the combine discussion before we dive, you know, into free agency, and then we'll wrap it all up, is the $1 million question, right? Like, did the combine for you guys, and Mario, we'll start with you, did the combine change at all for you as far as like possibly like what the Broncos do, you know, at pick 30 or just in general? Because I will say, like, going into the combine for me, and we had the conversation last week, but like, Mario, what is your confidence level that the Broncos are going to be picking at pick 30? Or is it one where you're not confident they're going to be picking at pick 30? The question is just, are they trading up or are they trading back?
If I had to bet on what I thought would happen, I think that they would probably trade out of the first round. It feels like the meat of this draft is kind of in the middle rounds, and so you trade back a little bit. Maybe there's a player that falls that isn't necessarily a need for the Broncos, like a cornerback. God, like, please don't take a cornerback in the first round again. But you trade back, you add some assets to, again, like where I think the meat of this draft is, like good solid role players who can grow and develop into starters. But if it were up to me, and I actually alluded to this earlier on Twitter, and it came from the Rams, who traded yet another first round pick for a Pro Bowl, all pro caliber player. And someone had put out like the last like 10 first round draft picks that the Rams have had. They have traded away every single solitary one of them except for the one that they took Jared Verse with. And then I think they also have 13, which they got from the Falcons last year. That's what I want the Broncos to start doing. And I had said, like, I don't understand why more teams don't do this, where it's like a first-round draft pick is like buying a brand new car. The minute that you drive it off of the lot, it depreciates in value. You go back and you look at the first round of last year's draft, how many of those guys today would you go and offer a first-round pick for? Maybe 5? You could make the argument for. So the thing is, like, draft picks are always highly valued, but the hit rate is something like 30 or 35% in the first round. And the later that you get, the lower that hit rate goes. So I added a caveat onto that and said, if you have an established quarterback, so like when the Broncos took Bo Nix, praise God, like thank goodness that they landed Bo Nix and they used their draft pick instead of sending draft picks to Seattle to get Russell Wilson. Like that's an exception to the rule. And so that's why I added on the caveat. If you have an established quarterback, which the Broncos very clearly do, and especially if you're picking 30 at the tail end of the round, you're either trading back and adding more assets, or you are taking that pick, which is very highly valued, like probably more highly valued than the player you're going to end up drafting there. And like alluding to what Jordan was saying, like go get a Jalen Waddle. If you have to go get AJ Brown with it, even though I don't think AJ Brown and Cortland Sutton can necessarily coexist, go get him. Go call about T. Higgins and see if the Bengals want to get back into the first round. Like make calls and see if you can add a wide receiver one, or even if it's not a wide receiver, like your biggest area of need, like a bona fide stud superstar where you know definitively what you're getting in terms of on-field production at the NFL level. Because at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter how much we study this stuff. It doesn't matter all the comps that we put out, the combine, pro days, the East-West Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, none of that shit really matters because every year there is going to be more misses than hits. So why not just take out the guesswork, trade the 30th overall pick for a player where you know what you're getting and you immediately make your team better, which, by the way, you were 14-3 last year and were a game away from the Super Bowl because your quarterback didn't play. This is your window. This is your Super Bowl window. It needs to be the expectation as a Bronco fan that you will win the Super Bowl in the next 3 to 4 years. That has to be the expectation. And you're not going to do it by taking random swings at guys that you think are going to be good. Get a bona fide stud in here who definitively will raise the floor of this team.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's like something like 35%, maybe a little bit more, of all players drafted in the first round get a second contract with the team that drafted them. So like you could take someone who's just an absolute dart throw and you don't know what that's going to be like, or you could look at it as instead of me, it's not that I'm trading pick 30. At pick 30, I'm drafting Jalen Waddle. That's what I'm drafting.
Right.
100%.
I agree 100% with that mindset. I think for me, in terms of like, what changed with the draft, I don't know if anything necessarily changed, although the only thing that maybe died is my pipe dream that we would somehow get Kenyon Sadiq, because that's not happening. Is I think like, and this wasn't affected really by the combine, it's just something I thought about as the combine was going on. I am becoming more and more okay with one, also as trading back, but like I want us to keep the interior of the defensive line a strength, and us potentially not being able to keep John Franklin Myers is not great, because like obviously yes, we have promising young edge rushers that are putting in good work for us, but like keeping the interior of the defensive line as dominant as it is on that defense is going to pay dividends. Like having a consistently elite line on both sides of the ball, and I do think there's even things we could do to upgrade the offensive line as well, but is going to be probably the best investment you could make. And I'm okay with us taking like a defensive lineman even at pick 30. Like I'm more okay with that. Where people maybe revolt in response to that because we didn't take an offensive playmaker.
I hope not.
But do you enjoy good football? Because that's what you're getting with that, right? So that didn't change for me because of the combine, but it's just something that I've been thinking more about as I've been looking at what's been kind of going on, and who would maybe be there on specifically the wide receiver side of things. And I'm like, okay, would I rather have my 4th ranked wide receiver or potentially my 2nd ranked defensive lineman? I'd probably rather have my 2nd ranked defensive lineman and keep this an absolute nightmare for opposing offenses to try to figure out. I couldn't agree more, Vince.
It's the Eagles blueprint, right? Like that's why they keep adding to the defense, whether it be on some of the edge room, linebacker room, or even the defensive line. They keep, and for one, they're Georgia players too, but just they keep adding to the their defense, and it's one of the reasons why over time it made them one of the best defenses in football.
Man, they need to check in on the wide receiver market via trade. Like But Mario said it was perfect. Like that 30th overall pick, like dream scenario, we're not selecting at that position. Whether we trade back or we trade it for a superstar, like just go get your young superstar quarterback who has showed you that if he would have played in that conference championship game, we would more likely be in the Super Bowl. Reward him and get him a stud. Like check around the league. Whoever has one more year or 2 more years on their contract, check if they're disgruntled with that team, if there's no rumblings happening. Like just check on them, and you never know, bro. You know, and we've seen some weird trades already happen. I know the Broncos can make one of them happen. I mean, just off the top of my mind, and I don't know if this is a very popular opinion or whatever. I don't know if it'll be for the 30th pick, but just check in on someone like a Marvin Harrison Jr. who knows Bo. Check in on someone like that, like just to see what the price is. You never know.
I mean, what do they always say? They always check on everybody, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we gotta start going now. Like how Mario said, our Super Bowl windows now.
You know, you mentioned about, you know, the way things are going in free agency, and well, Broncos insider Mike Kliss dropped a very noteworthy article about like an hour or 2 hours before we went live, and there was a lot to take in. There was a lot to take in, you know, from that article, and you know, Mario, it wasn't exactly good news.
When does good news ever come out of Mike Kliss's mouth, if we're being honest? Yeah, if they end up with Kenneth Gainwell, you know, as we're talking about, regardless of how you feel, like you're talking about Kenneth Walker, you're talking about ETN, Breece Hall before he was franchise tagged. And I don't know, maybe they're going to tag him and trade him. We'll see. My personal favorite, Tyler Algier, Rashad White. Like you have so many really good options. Rico Dowdle at the running back position. And if they go get a guy that does the exact same thing as RJ Harvey
or Jaleel, yeah,
I will be so mad. I mean, I will just be inconsolably apoplectic about that. And so all we can hope is that it's typical Mike Kliss nonsense and it's clickbaity, where it's making the rounds of like, oh yeah, Kenneth Gainwell was the name that was kind of predominantly mentioned here. It's like, okay, go get Kenneth Gainwell, and then what are you doing with RJ Harvey? Because they're the same guy.
Brandon.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know really what to believe with, honestly, what Mike Kliss puts out nowadays, and nothing against him as a person, but I don't know. I think you're kind of just guesstimating a little bit with, I don't think he's been the most accurate recently. So I don't really put a lot of stock into that, to be honest with you. And like, I like Kenneth Gainwell as a player, honestly. Like, I think he's okay. I don't want him in Denver, but I think he's like a decent running back. I don't see that playing out that way personally. Like, as much as I don't even necessarily want to go this route, like I actually see Kenneth Walker being kind of more in our future. I don't think he's a bad player. I like Kenneth Walker. I think he'd be an upgrade for us, but how much of an upgrade is kind of what I'm curious about. But yeah, I don't really see that as noteworthy, to be honest with you. Like, I just don't think that's going to be the way. It can't be. Like, this organization has seen how little the running game has helped them when Dobbins went down, and like they have to see you need to do something about that room, because if you just bring Dobbins back, which I'm okay with, like you have to have some kind of a better insurance policy for him than RJ Harvey, who I don't have anything against. I think he was good specifically out of the backfield as like a receiver,
really good,
but he just didn't do enough for me as just a runner or in pass protection. And I feel like if I can see that, surely this team can also see that. Like, I don't think that Gainwell specifically is the play here.
Yeah, if Gainwell's the play here, I mean, that timeline, that day will be something to behold, because my God, the things that will get said on there by a lot of people. I mean, I think the Broncos are more than aware to swing bigger with that room. Like, there's no way you come out of there with Gainwell. I mean, you already have rumors coming out that the Broncos are going to make a big splash at the running back position, and then you cannot let down not only the fans but just the locker room in general. The locker room knows that you need to make big splashes, and they know that the Super Bowl window's now. And with all due respect, you don't get a guy that can Gainwell and add him to the roster and say, "Yeah, this is our guy." I mean, you got to swing big, whether that's Walker or I know people have their positive takes on Algier or Etienne. I mean, you got to get a guy that is respected as a running back and that can actually improve that running back room.
Well, in specific.
So there was also the report specifically too. I think it was with that same one that talked about us making a splash that said that the Broncos were primarily the reason why the Jets decided to do the franchise tag and not the transition tag on Breece Hall. So it's like these are completely opposite things here. Like, who knows anything?
Yeah. Well, and specific to like the free agent running back class, there's actually really good options available. I know Mario mentioned that, and like we all mentioned that. Like, there's good options available for you to resort to a Kenneth Gainwell, which is basically, which frankly should be your second running back you sign, not the first running back you sign, would be quite the disappointment. And then on top of that, re-signing players, like all your players, that frankly we could argue some probably shouldn't even be back. And and also too, when you think of the linebacker position, Mario, the linebacker free agency class is also deep, and the draft class is also deep. And I know we talked about some of those players, so it's one of those things where it puts the Alex Singleton discourse, if you will, at a bit of a advantage for the fans, if you will, but a disadvantage when things come out, and things about retaining them. And unless you're signing them to half of the deal that it's reported, and then double dipping at linebacker, that'd be the only reason why I could see something of the likes of, Singleton actually working out, if you will.
Yeah, they just can't run it back. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Like, we saw what the biggest weakness was. And here's the thing, like, if you want to take it a step further, I don't know what the deal is with John Franklin Meyer. Like, nothing against Malcolm Roach. He's fantastic, but it was odd to me that they prioritized him over JFM. And I understand, like, it's a cheaper contract and he doesn't quite do what JFM does. I don't know if there's some behind the scenes stuff. Like, obviously JFM has been a bit vocal on Twitter. And people have made a big deal about it. It's probably not as big a deal as we're making it. But the bottom line is, man, like, he produces, and that would be one of the biggest losses if they don't end up bringing back John Franklin Myers. And so the reason that I bring that up is because if you are going to bring back Alex Singleton and you are going to give him a pay raise, you could have taken parts of that money, a decent amount of that money, and put it towards a John Franklin Myers extension. Which, if we're talking about allocating money, I would much prefer for this increase in money they have now that Russell Wilson is off the books. Like, put it towards a John Franklin Meyer contract and extending him before Alex Singleton, because you could also make the case that the reason Singleton is viewed as good as he is to Bronco fans is because that defensive front is so good and because the edge rushers are so good. You take out a key cog of that defensive line, like an interior defensive lineman who had 7.5 sacks, where he's trying to beat Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper and Zach Allen to the quarterback on any given down, still ended up with 7.5 sacks and one of the league leaders in pressures, and then like these advanced analytics of like getting off of his block and like beating his man. Like, that is so much more important to me in retaining him. And I'm willing to deal with the silly Twitter if that's the problem and like that's the disconnect between him and the franchise. But that's exactly the kind of reason that like I would be upset that they would bring Alex Singleton back at a pay raise. And they're like, I had someone arguing with me where they're like, oh, Alex Singleton is going to have 100 tackles. Alex Singleton has had 100 tackles exactly once in his career, and it was in 2023. This past year, he had 54 solo tackles as an inside linebacker who played, I'm pretty sure, all but one game. He had 3 TFLs on the entire season. He forced 1 fumble. He had 0 interceptions. Give me a linebacker that can produce. That's why I'm so high on Jacob Rodriguez. He makes plays on the ball. He's always around the ball. The majority of Alex Singleton, literally, statistically, the majority of Alex Singleton's tackles last year were in mop-up duty. He had 80-something assisted tackles, which means that he got there at the exact same time as somebody else or just after somebody else.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing we always say too, is like you can have all the tackles in the world, but also with that is those missed tackles. You know, it's the give and take that you're going to get with Alex Singleton. Of course, we also know about his very, very good coverage grade. You know, when it comes in coverage.
Really quick, Raider Zach in the comments said, wasn't he coming off of injury? Yes, he had torn his ACL the year before. But here's the thing, man, and I will die on this hill, and like this is coming from somebody who is a body worker and works on a lot of the players. If you are playing, you do not get to use the excuse that you were hurt or that you were coming off an injury. Because if you are on the field, then clearly you feel well enough to play. I mean, you take it back to a few years ago, like after Russell Wilson's first year, and we all know how that went, okay? And he's blaming it on a partially torn lat or whatever he was saying. It's like, all right, bro, then you shouldn't have been playing. Like, if that was the reason that you were so bad, then you should not have been playing. But the fact that you were playing tells everybody that you felt well enough to play. So while he might have been coming off of an injury, we are talking about a multi-billion-dollar company in the Denver Broncos and a multi-million-dollar athlete surrounded by multi-million-dollar athletes. If you are not up to the task, you should not be playing. Because as we saw, there were plenty of people on this roster who supplanted him. The one game that he missed was that Kansas City Chiefs game. And they did not miss him in that game. So if the defense can function just fine, if not better without him, why do we continue making the case that he should be on this team at a pay raise when that money can go towards someone like JFM? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
It's okay. I mean, we take crazy pills every once in a while. I myself have never taken crazy pills in my life. So when you look at
you were just born crazy.
or I was dropped wrong. One of the two. So when you look,
is there a way to drop correctly?
So
maybe I was dropped. Maybe I was dropped right. Maybe that's what happened.
So Jordan and Brent, I know we did semi of it last week, but this being the last week before free agency officially starts, because like that's what everybody says, like the official day is on Wednesday, but we all know it for all intents and purposes starts on Monday the 9th. So we can make many changes, if you will, on some of the offensive and defensive predictions for free agency. But Mario, you being the guest and everything, this is your floor on the mic and everything before your Tuesday's show, where you can actually call your shot. No pressure for the offensive free agent that the Broncos will sign and the defensive free agent that they will sign that is not a former or in-house Bronco, if you will.
I think on offense, it's going to be Trevor Etienne, and I think on defense, it's going to be Devin Lloyd.
Trevor Etienne, not Travis Etienne.
What did I say?
I think you said Trevor.
Trevor Etienne, Travis Etienne don't matter. He's a Bronco.
So you're despite all your Tyler Algier and everything.
Well, I would prefer Tyler Algier, but I'm trying to get into the mind of Sean Payton and George Payton. And as much as I love Tyler Algier and think that he would be the perfect running back to like complement this room, and then you go draft a guy in April. If they are in fact going to make a big splash, that tells me that they're going after a big name. And, you know, straight up and down, like ETN is a bigger name than Tyler Algier. Never mind the fact that Algier was one of the best pass blocking running backs in the league in the limited duty that he had. Never mind the fact that he was 1,000-yard rusher his rookie year on a really bad Atlanta Falcons team before Bijan Robinson was drafted. Never mind the fact that, he could probably average 6 yards a carry in this offense. ETN is technically the bigger name and would theoretically be a bigger splash. And so, as much as I would love to have Tyler Algier here, I also don't want to set myself up for disappointment, because I would also be ecstatic if they added ETN, Trevor, Travis, whichever one is the good one. That's the one that I want. Not more than Algier, though.
Jordan and Brent, I know that there was the conversation of Travis ETN last week. Are you guys still sticking to the guns of Travis?
For me, I still think it'll be Travis, even though this late, and I know it's not Broncos driven, it's more media driven, but the surge of Tyler Algier, I wonder if that's playing a role in their minds of maybe entertaining that more than ETN. We've heard the connections between the Jaguars and the Broncos having interest in the same players. So I think I'm going to stick with my defensive signing where Devin Lloyd is going to be that guy. And I know I said it last episode. I'll say it again. I'm going to go with a tight end signing on offense. It'll be David Njoku.
What university did he go to, Jordan?
Oh, come on, baby. The U.
And you tell me that I'm biased.
Not biased.
What about you, Brandon?
As long as we end up with Malachi Tony, I'll be psyched.
Oh, my God.
Could you imagine?
Yeah. Well, as much as I would also like to say Devin Lloyd, because I believe I also mentioned him earlier, I'll change it up a little bit, but I'm going to stick with linebacker because I just want, please give us something here. I'll say Nakobe Dean from the Eagles. Dude just is absolute baller. He flies all over the field. He is pretty much exactly what, in my personal opinion, what we need. Him or Lloyd from the Jaguars. I just think we need some like injection of just like raw athlete at linebacker personally, and we just need more there. And Mario's already waxed poetic about how much, why are we looking at trying to keep Alex Singleton, so I won't get into that, but replace him with someone. I don't care if that's Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean. I'll say Dean just to change it up a little bit. And then as much as I want Alec Pierce, I don't think the Colts will get rid of him. So I'll say Wan'Dale Robinson, giving us a good splashy white.
Yeah.
He's a little underrated in my opinion. He's so good downfield. He's not the yak monster that, I think we could also add to the roster if we could do that in the draft. But he's just so good as like an intermediate and down the field weapon that he's kind of like in that similar, like, well, if you're not going to use Marvin Mims, he's in your Marvin Mims role, but
Davis Webb connection.
Better
to ignore.
Davis Webb connection. Yep. So those are going to be my two, Robinson and Dean. If we get both of those guys, I'm going to be hyped.
What do you
backup for offense? I was going to say likely, but also Robinson.
So what do you hypothetically, because that's the other part of it too, is like what are you signing Wan'Dale to, right? Because there's a lot of there's a lot of speculation like he could maybe sign for like the Pierce money, but like not 30, but like the 25 range, if you will. But like what are you signing him to?
I don't think he's going to get that high. I think he's going to be like maybe like in the 17 a year.
I hope
kind of range. I don't know if he's going to hit 20. I mean, maybe he does. Like he's a good player. I don't think he's on Alec Pierce's level personally, and like Alec Pierce is going to get that more of the bag. I don't even know if Alec Pierce, like as much as I love Alec Pierce, I'm not sure that I would want to pay him 25 plus million a year, but he probably is going to get it.
Agreed.
So yeah, I'll say like the 17 for Robinson to me is fair. Maybe it's a little bit higher than that, but what is money? We're rich.
Well, get ready for Demario Davis and Taysom Hill to be the signings. So,
dude, that's going to happen, and then we're going to draft a cornerback in round 1 again,
or safety, right?
And then everyone in this fan base will crash the hell out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, trade for Alvin Kamara for the running back position.
There you go.
Yeah. I think I'll kind of change a little bit, but it seems like things are kind of leaning towards, Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, that kind of thing. I will say on the offensive side of the ball, I will stick to the original dream of what I will say, and that would be Cade Otton. I will say Cade Otton on offense. The team, obviously, we didn't get a chance actually to talk much about the tight end from the free agency side of things, but K-Don would be like one of the big ones that I would love to add. Obviously, of the big three, Njoku was the other one that Jordan mentioned. But K-Don, I think he's perfect. I mean, you have, and it's nothing against guys like Dallas Goedert or even an Njoku. It's just the part that just really does it for me is he's well under 30. And, and if you are going to be rolling with the idea of Ingram still in this year, you could still roll with an Evan Ingram and then, K-Dotton, and then frankly have K-Dotton end up being that full-time guy once Evan Ingram's gone after this year. Or, you decide to go get a tight end or double dip at tight end, which I wouldn't even rule out too in this class. So I'll say K-Dotton. And then I'm surprised he's not talked about a lot in terms of maybe based on some of the linebacker buzz with but I will still stick to the guns of Caden Ellis. I'm kind of still on that Jonah Ellis connection. He was drafted by Sean Payton in 2019. It seemed like they really also wanted Zach Bond, right? The guy who was with the Eagles that Sean Payton had all that connections with, and then he ended up signing with the Eagles. So I'm definitely not ruling out the possibility that Caden Ellis would be the guy in case they don't get a Nakobe Dean, a Devin Lloyd, So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised about that.
Not bad.
Marty, before we go, anything that you have cooking in the grapevine? I obviously know that you guys go live on Tuesdays, so free agency for all intents and purposes is in the meat of it. What do you have cooking over there at Let's Talk Broncos?
No idea. We don't figure out what we want to talk about until the show starts. So that's how we roll.
You know what? That actually seems kind of
half the time, like when Zach will reach out to me because he gets our room set up and everything on StreamYard, and he's like, "What are you guys talking about?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I tell him I'm like, make a title that will make people want to click it. Maybe we'll discuss that thing, but about half the time we don't, and about half the time that we do actually discuss the thing. I throw it in the middle of the show and just say, "Oh, by the way, the title of this video is this, and here's how we feel about it, and let's keep talking about what we were talking about." Yeah, it's a beautiful car crash of a show. Altitude Adjustment, if you haven't watched. Most Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, myself and Patrick Chiotti, unless he is predisposed, then it's usually me and somebody else. And it's just a really good time. It's chaotic. It's loud. It's a bit of a captainless ship, but I assure you, if you tune in, you will either have fun or you'll think it's the most obnoxious Broncos podcast, and I feel like there's no middle ground.
I was going to say, you were on your best behavior. You told me you're going to be unhinged tonight. You were actually on your best behavior when it came to being...
I got a little unhinged a couple of times, but I tried to refrain from swearing because I know this is a family program.
No, we definitely do allow swearing. It's okay.
Oops.
We want people to be themselves. That's one of the reasons why probably it's also one of the traps I follow with you, allowing you to be maybe too much of yourself and unhinged, if you will, on the show. But,
Listen, I didn't want to swear, okay? And I'm not going to swear as I'm bleeping myself, okay? So anybody who is expecting me to come in here and swear can go get...
By the way, a little bit of a breaking news too. It's funny you talk about like the show topics because Jordan and Brandon can attest to this. Sometimes like when we do discussions of topics, there are times where we will literally like make the determination like that day, or like at the very most it ends up being like 24 to 48 hours beforehand. It is definitely one where we make our rundown, because we're guys, we like to procrastinate, like very much like the day of the show. So
that's how it be.
It is how it be. But, that's also what makes our podcast, and the stream also very, very good. So, Mario, thank you so much for hopping on. Make sure you follow him over there at Vitanzi Therapy. And as always, as we said there at the top, make sure you subscribe to the MHRT Network YouTube page. And there is also a join feature, which they do as a membership. You guys can subscribe, be a member for whatever price range is best suited for you guys. There's a $2.99, a $6.99, and a $12.99. And, of course, the YouTube channel for Mainly. There is a Mainly YouTube page. That is basically where we do a bunch of our YouTube shorts, which, oh, by the way, is also advertised on Instagram and TikTok. So make sure you go there. And, of course, follow the boys of Jordan T. Lopez and Brandon Miller, P.O., which we all know Brandon Miller is no relation to the basketball player Brandon Miller in the NBA. And follow myself at Kevin Parker, P.O. And without further ado, God bless Bo Nix.
Let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what this is